You have spent your life bending your spine to be accepted, groveling in the mud for a smile, a nod, a crumb of affection. And what have you received in return? Not reverence, but ridicule, not loyalty, but betrayal. You have been the agreeable dog, tail wagging, eager to please the hand that feeds, and the same hand slaps you when it pleases. You traded your claws for claps, your teeth for touches, and called it kindness. But deep inside, a truth gnawed at your bones. The world does not reward the tame, it devours them. The need to be liked is the soft leash around your neck, and with every yes you whisper, it tightens. Who taught you this sickness? Who convinced you that virtue lies in submission, that goodness means vanishing? They did. Those who benefit from your silence, those who smile as they step over your dignity. But the mask is cracking, the leash is fraying, and what will emerge from your quiet agony? Not a martyr, a menace. You were not born to kneel, you were not forged for applause. You were made to stand where others tremble, to speak where others silence themselves. This is not arrogance, it is reclamation. When you stop craving approval, the world changes its tone. People who once ignored you begin to hesitate. Friends grow cautious. Enemies grow polite. Why? Because you've become expensive to offend. The man who does not need is the man who cannot be controlled. And that terrifies them. They can no longer dangle affection like a puppet string. Your silence becomes heavier than their praise. Your boundaries sharper than their flattery. This is the birth of power, not in domination, but in refusal. You no longer sell yourself cheap. And now they must pay attention, not because they love you, but because they fear losing access to you. The agreeable man is celebrated only until he is no longer useful. Then he is discarded like a broken tool, gratefully used, silently despised. Why? Because dependence breeds contempt. When you need others to like you, you hand them the keys to your prison. You let them become the gods of your self-worth. And gods, once given power, never give it back freely. Every laugh you fake, every insult you swallow, every time you say, "It's fine," while your soul burns, that is a prayer to a false idol. And that idol is approval. But approval is not loyalty. It is not respect. It is not even real. It is a cheap replica of validation, manufactured in bulk, distributed without care. And when you no longer serve, when your obedience becomes inconvenient, they revoke it without warning. Suddenly, the ones who loved you cannot be found. This is the cost of being liked, eventual abandonment. Respect is not given to the agreeable. It is given to the immovable. The man who holds his line while others plead. The man who does not tremble when others threaten. This is the paradox. When you stop begging for affection, people start offering it. Not because you need it, but because you don't. Humans instinctively value what they cannot control. A man who does not chase is a man who is pursued. A man who can walk away is a man who is never walked over. The moment you detach from the hunger to be liked, you become magnetic. Not to everyone, no, but to those who matter, the ones who see strength and are drawn to it. The weak will flee, the manipulators will hiss, but the rare few will recognize something in you, sovereignty. And that is the essence of the respect switch. You stop performing, you start ruling. From the moment we can walk, we are taught to bend. Be nice, they say. Share everything. Don't speak too loudly, don't question. But behind these smiles lies a subtle castration, the removal of your edge, your will, your fire. Schools reward the obedient, not the brilliant. Workplaces praise the agreeable, not the indispensable. Even in love, you're told to compromise until you disappear. And what is left of you? A shadow that apologizes for its own existence. This is not morality, it is submission. And submission disguised as virtue is the oldest con of civilization. They do not want you kind, they want you harmless. Harmless men are not respected, they are tolerated. They are stepped over, not because they are bad, but because they are soft. And softness in the game of power is not a virtue, it is an invitation to be ignored. But what happens when the soft man sharpens? When he rises without raising his voice? When his silence becomes a presence, not a pause? Then the world begins to flinch, because they no longer recognize the man they used to manipulate. He no longer explains, he no longer waits, he no longer plays the game. And yet, ironically, it is now that he begins to win it. Why? Because he flipped the switch. The respect switch is not theatrical, it is internal. It begins with a vow. I will no longer be ruled by the need to be liked. That one decision rewires the nervous system. The voice deepens, not in tone, but in certainty. The gaze settles, not with aggression, but with calm. Others sense it, they don't know why, but they begin to measure their words. They begin to hesitate before speaking falsely. This is not intimidation, this is presence. People think fear and respect are enemies. They are not. Respect at its core is fear dressed in civility, not fear of violence, fear of consequence, fear of being forgotten, fear of being cut off, fear of being outside the favor of someone unshakable. This fear is not cruelty, it is gravity. And gravity is what keeps things in orbit. When you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop seeking forgiveness for existing, you become gravitational. People begin to revolve around your silence. They check their tone, they monitor their access, because they know disrespect has a cost, and cost changes behavior faster than kindness ever could. Love may inspire, but fear compels. And in a world full of liars, traitors, and opportunists, respect is the only stable currency, not applause, not admiration. Respect. And the man who commands it without asking, rules without speaking. To reach this state, one must first starve the addiction to approval. It is a drug more subtle than heroin and more common than air. Every smile you fish for, every compliment you need, every nod you crave, it feeds a sickness that makes you predictable. And predictability is death in a world of predators. They sniff it out. They know who needs validation. They know who fears being disliked. And they use that fear to mold you, to drain you, to discard you. But once you cut the wire, once you can sit in the storm of disapproval and feel nothing, you become untouchable. Imagine that power, to be immune to manipulation, to be unmoved by gossip, immune to flattery, deaf to guilt. You become a wall. And only those strong enough to knock with respect may enter. That is not arrogance, that is liberation. The true shift is subtle. There is no announcement, no ceremony. One day, you simply stop explaining. You stop justifying your no. You stop laughing at jokes that bore you. You stop entertaining people who drain you. And the world begins to notice. Not because you told them, but because your energy speaks louder than words ever could. The man who no longer fears rejection carries himself differently. He does not rush to fill silence. He does not over-apologize. He walks into a room not asking, will they like me, but demanding, are they worthy of me? This reversal terrifies those who once held power. Over you, it exposes the lie that their affection was never free. It was a leash and you've severed it. Now you move through the world as something rare, and rarity breeds reverence. In relationships, this switch is transformational. The one who can walk away never begs to stay. The one who has boundaries is never begged to bend. You become the storm in their calm world, the reminder that affection is optional, but respect is mandatory. Love that requires obedience is not love. It is a transaction and often a scam. But the man who commands respect, even when disliked, becomes indispensable. Why? Because strength is rare. Because people crave what they cannot command. When your kindness becomes a reward, not a default, it carries weight. When your time must be earned, not expected, it becomes gold. This is how the switch alters your gravity. You don't become cruel. you become costly, and costly things are never thrown away. Society, however, will resist your transformation. It will call you cold, arrogant, difficult. It will beg you to return to your previous form, the agreeable, the available, the harmless, not because they miss you, but because they miss using you. They miss your compliance. They miss the comfort of your predictability. But now, your silence makes them nervous. Your boundaries feel like rejection. Your distance feels like superiority. And in truth, it is. Not superiority in worth, but in awareness. You have seen the truth, that being liked is a leash, and you refuse to wear it. You no longer trade peace of mind for approval. And that decision, simple yet seismic, makes people tremble, because you remind them of their own shackles, and no one likes to be reminded they are still chained. This is why most men will never flip the respect switch, because it costs something up front. It costs comfort, it costs popularity, it costs the illusion of peace. But what you gain is immeasurable. You gain clarity, who respects you and who merely uses you. You gain leverage, the power to say no without fear. And most of all, you gain control of your time, your energy, your soul. People will test you. They will poke your boundaries, bait you with guilt, provoke you with silence. But if you hold, if you refuse to flinch, something extraordinary happens. They adjust. They calibrate themselves to your standard, because people always respond to consequence. They may not understand your silence, but they will respect it. And once they do, they'll never look at you the same again. The weak man explains. He pleads. He justifies every breath he takes as if his existence demands apology. But the man who flips the switch learns a secret. Silence is power. Not because it hides something, but because it reveals nothing. And when people can't read you, they begin to project. They assign meaning to your stillness, gravity to your gaze. They wonder, what is he thinking? Is he angry? Did I cross a line? That uncertainty becomes your shield, not because you intend to intimidate, but because your restraint implies consequence. This is why Machiavelli admired silence more than charm. The charming man may win hearts, but the silent man commands caution. And in a world of noise, caution is respect. To enforce this presence, you must become a master of emotional detachment, not numbness, control. When conflict arises, you don't react, you assess. You don't raise your voice, you lower your temperature. The colder you become under pressure, the hotter. Their panic burns. They realize quickly, you are not moved by chaos. You are the eye of the storm. This composure breaks manipulators. It confuses attackers. Because most people rely on emotional leverage to win. They bait with guilt, corner with anger, flood with tears. But the man who does not flinch becomes unplayable. He becomes a mirror, reflecting their tactics back onto them. And nothing is more terrifying than realizing your tricks no longer work, that your emotional strings no longer pull, that your prey has become untouchable. To remain untouchable, you must become unpredictable. Predictability is a blueprint for exploitation. If they know you will always say yes, you become a tool. If they know you'll always forgive, you become a doormat. But if they can't predict your reaction, they fear misstepping. This fear is not abuse, it's calibration. Machiavelli warned rulers to avoid consistency. It makes you easy to defeat. Your patterns become maps for your enemies, so you must blur the map, sometimes reward, sometimes withhold, sometimes be warm, sometimes vanish. Not to play games, but to remind them, you are not a system. They cannot run code on you. You are not a pet. They cannot train you. You are a storm, beautiful but untamable. Boundaries are your castle walls, and they must be enforced without warning. No negotiations, no explanations, just action. Someone disrespects you? Withdraw. No speech, no drama, just distance. They'll feel it. The quiet void left in. Your absence will scream louder than any confrontation. Machiavelli taught that rulers must punish swiftly and silently. A loud punishment is a plea. A quiet one is a verdict. And that's what you must become, the judge of your own domain. If people don't fear crossing you, they will. And once they do, without consequence, the damage is done. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. So tolerate nothing that undermines your worth. Your kindness is earned, not owed. Your presence is privilege, not right. People will call this arrogance, but only because they can no longer control you. The moment you stop dancing to their rhythm, they cry foul. But let them cry. Let them throw tantrums. Let them scream your name in rooms you've left behind. Because while they talk, you rise. While they gossip, you vanish. And in your absence, they feel your weight more than they ever did in your presence. You see, when you are everywhere, you are nowhere. When you are always available, you become disposable. Scarcity is the currency of value. The man who withdraws becomes legend. The man who retreats becomes myth. And legends are respected because they cannot be summoned. They appear when they choose, and that choice alone is power. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to raise your voice. You need only to become rare. In business, this changes negotiations. In love, it shifts the balance. In friendships, it creates space for truth. People stop testing you, not because you punish them, but because they don't want to risk being removed. This isn't cruelty, it's consequence. And consequence is the most honest teacher. You become a man of terms, not requests. You do not ask for loyalty, you define it. You do not beg for inclusion, you decide your circle. And suddenly, the world behaves differently around you, not because it changed, but because you did. And now, they must follow your rhythm or be left behind. When you begin to live this way, something profound happens. Your silence starts doing the talking. You no longer have to argue for your worth. Your absence makes the case. You no longer need to demand respect. Your boundaries announce it. And those who once overlooked you now whisper your name with caution. They wonder what changed. They wonder if you've become dangerous, and you have, not in the way of threats or force, but in the way fire is dangerous, beautiful, untouchable, and respected from a distance. This is what it means to stop being liked and start being respected. You become a man who others measure themselves against, a standard, a force, no longer the echo of others' opinions, but the origin of your own. The cost of this transformation is solitude, but not loneliness. For a while, you will walk alone, because the crowd prefers performers, not rulers. They want applause, not authority. But authority walks alone before it is followed. The lion does not travel in herds, and neither do those who lead. Solitude is where the switch solidifies, where you learn to enjoy your own company more than their shallow praise, where you build your inner citadel, stone by stone, immune to noise. And when you return, when you choose to appear, it is on your terms. Your words will carry the weight of thunder, not because they're loud, but because they're rare. And in that rarity, people will listen, not out of love, not even out of admiration, but because they fear losing what they cannot control. Let them call you distant. Let them call you cold. That is the language of the dependent mourning their lost control, because what they truly miss is your weakness, your availability, your predictable kindness. But you've shed that skin. The man you are now does not give without discernment, does not answer every call, does not flinch at silence. He moves with purpose. He speaks with precision. He vanishes without warning and returns when the time is right. This is not manipulation. It is discipline. It is the art of scarcity turned into strategy. Machiavelli would not only approve, he would applaud, because this is how one rules without a throne, commands without an army, influences without begging. Make no mistake, the world respects what it cannot possess. You must train people to value you, not through volume but through absence. You teach your worth by withdrawal. You establish your standard not by convincing, but by vanishing. When they cross you, don't retaliate, disappear. When they question your value, let them live without it. And when they finally return, if they return, you decide whether their presence deserves yours. This is how kings move. This is how legends are built, not through constant presence, but through unforgettable scarcity. And the more they notice your absence, the more they prepare for your return. You stop being a man. You become an event. Respect begins when permission ends. The moment you stop seeking approval, you reclaim your power. You no longer ask, "Is this okay?" You declare, "This is how I move." Your life ceases to be a negotiation. It becomes a boundary, and boundaries, when held without apology, provoke a primal reaction, submission or retreat. Both serve you, because you are no longer offering yourself. You are no longer available for everyone. And this change triggers discomfort in those who once fed on your openness. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to the sovereignty of your own soul. And sovereignty does not kneel. It does not over-explain. It does not crave. It decides. This is why most people will never understand this path. They are too afraid of being disliked, too addicted to applause. They don't realize that applause fades, popularity dies, but reputation, earned through consequence, endures. Look at those who truly hold power. They speak less, they appear less, but when they do, the world shifts. Their presence creates silence. Their words alter direction. Why? Because they trained the world to expect impact from them. They withheld until their voice mattered, and you must do the same. Become the man whose time is an event, the man whose attention must be earned, the man whose respect is currency, not charity. In this, you stop being a character in others' stories and begin writing your own myth. You must understand this clearly. People only value what they believe they can lose. If you're always present, always giving, always forgiving, they will treat you as furniture, convenient, expected, invisible. But withdraw even slightly and watch their tone change. Suddenly they remember your worth. Suddenly they measure their words. Scarcity is not cruelty, it is calibration. It forces others to re-evaluate what they took for granted. And in that space, respect blooms, not from fear of punishment, but from the realization that your presence is not guaranteed. You become something rare, and rare things are not asked for. They are pursued, protected, prized. This is not about playing games. It's about setting terms. You are no longer the man who begs for inclusion. You are the man who must be invited, and your invitation is earned through action, not words. This terrifies those used to your old self, the one who tolerated everything to be liked. They will call you heartless. Let them. You are not here to be understood by the masses. You are here to be respected by the few who matter. And respect, unlike love, cannot be given freely. It must be purchased with consistency, with silence, with boundaries enforced like law. You do not threaten, you act. And when you act, you do so without ceremony. This is what turns a man into an institution, not noise, but principle. Most men drown in accessibility. In their thirst to be needed, they open every door, answer every call, show up for every request. They think this is strength. It is not. It is erosion. The more they give without demand, the more they are consumed. People do not respect what is always available. They respect what must be earned. So you must become less visible, not absent, selective. You must become the man who chooses his presence like a king chooses battles. Not every summons is worthy. Not every cry deserves response. And in this discipline, you become rare. And in rarity, you become powerful, because they cannot predict you, because they cannot possess you. Every time you say no without apology, you carve a statue of self-respect. Every time you walk away without drama, you lay a stone in the foundation of your legend. This is the long game, not of popularity but of permanence, because while others chase likes, you build legacy. While they beg to be liked, you become unforgettable. This is not about cruelty, it's about gravity. People orbit what holds mass, and mass is built by saying no more than yes, by showing up when it matters, not when it's convenient for others. So be still, be silent, be rare. And when you finally move, move like thunder, not to be noticed, but to be remembered. You were not born to be everyone's answer. You were born to be the question they cannot solve, the riddle they speak of in whispers. That's what the respect switch creates, a mystique. It's not about being feared like a tyrant. It's about being known as someone who will not be disrespected without cost. Your silence becomes a weapon. Your distance becomes a filter, and the few who pass through that filter, they don't come to flatter, they come correct, because they know you don't beg. You don't chase, you don't explain, you simply disappear, and nothing haunts the manipulator more than the door that closes without warning, never to open again. In practical terms, this is your creed. Give less, speak less, appear less. But when you do so with impact. Let your presence shift the room. Let your words feel like thunder after a long silence. The mistake of the agreeable man is thinking love is earned by being everywhere, all the time. But love is not respect, and respect is what endures. The men remembered in history are not those who begged for love, but those who walked alone, with fire in their chest and steel in their spine. So walk alone, if needed. Be feared if required, be silent when wise, but never be cheap, never be common, never let the world confuse your kindness for weakness again. The final transformation is this: you stop reacting to the world and start commanding your space within it. You no longer explain your standards, you live them. You no longer declare your value. You embody it, and those who cannot rise to meet you will fall away, not because you pushed them, but because your elevation left them behind. This is the path of the rare, the path of the respected, not the most liked, not the most celebrated, but the most remembered, the one who speaks little, but whose silence shakes the air, the one who appears rarely, but whose presence ends conversations. This is the kind of man the world adjusts to, because his existence forces recalibration. And when they finally speak your name, they will do so carefully, not because you demanded it, but because your life demanded it. You didn't rise by climbing ladders. You burned them. You didn't beg for space. You took it, quietly, fully, without permission. And this is what Machiavelli would smile upon, not the brute, not the sycophant, but the silent strategist who made the world bend by stepping back. If this is your path, walk it with pride. There will be fewer voices around you, but the ones that remain will carry weight. And in that silence, in that scarcity, in that storm of restraint, you will find a power greater than applause. You will find respect. So here you are, on the edge. One hand still reaching for the applause, the other already gripping the sword of silence. You must choose. Will you remain a servant to approval, or will you become a sovereign of respect? The world won't wait. Either you command it or it consumes you. Flip the switch. Kill the yay craving. Withdraw your leash from their hands. And when you speak, let it be law. When you appear, let it be legend. Because the man who no longer needs love becomes the one others dare not betray. The man who stops explaining becomes the one others strive to understand. And the man who enforces his value through absence, he becomes unforgettable. Now ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped asking, do they like me? And started demanding, do they respect me? That is your task. That is your path. And if this message found you at the right time, if something in you just woke up, don't let it fall asleep again. Like this video, subscribe, Leave a comment below and tell me the moment you realized the leash was around your neck. Share this with someone still stuck in the prison of approval, because the world does not wait for the agreeable. And from this moment on, neither should you.